Hello, everyone. Happy Friday today. Welcome back to our online conversation series. Again, I'm Bayley, Mizelle, the director of the Photographic Arts Council Los Angeles. And today I'm excited to be joined by arts professional and Los Angeles modern auction specialist, Alex Fierro. Also offer insights to LAMA's recently debuted photographs auction from August 2nd, as well as collecting accessible art and art sales as some subjects as well. Thank you for joining us today, Alex.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with such an amazing community.
Yes, we're happy to have you. Just a few other points, and then we'll pass it right back to Alex to get started. For those of you who are joining us for the first time today, PACLA is a nonprofit organization that fosters the education, scholarship, and advocacy of the photographic and lens-based arts. We are made up of our membership and board of directors, who are collectors, photographers, students, educators, and curators. Alex is also a member of our organization. And to learn more about PACLA and to visit some content that is shared by Alex today, please visit the links that I will add to the chat shortly. Before we get started, I would also like to send a note of gratitude to our board of directors, our membership, community partners, and sponsors. Thank you for your ongoing support and commitment to PACLA's growth, our programming, and building our community, especially as we celebrate our 10th year as a nonprofit organization this year. We look forward to sharing more exciting programming with you that's in the works to celebrate with you throughout the remainder of the year. Just a brief run of show, and then we'll pass it to Alex to give you a brief on her background, and then we'll get started. We'll have a quick 40 to 45-minute presentation with Alex, followed by an open conversation and Q&A. During the presentation, please make sure to use the chat and Q&A boxes for your questions and comments, and we'll get to them live. This will be more of an open format today, so your questions and comments are very welcome. And then we will break the conversation into three main parts. Part one, the basics of pre-auction preparation and curation. Part two, the ins and outs of art sales. And part three, collecting art and stewarding access. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it to Alex to start the conversation. Give us a little bit of your background, tell us how you got into the arts and also became a part of the arena of the auction.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I started going to school at UCSB in Santa Barbara. I started as biopsychology major and had one class in art history, and the TA was really encouraging and was like, oh my God, like I never looked at that painting in that way before. And I was like, oh, this is so much fun. And so I started double majoring and then eventually just focused on art history. I was the first one to go to college from both sides of my family. So there's a lot of pressure to really work hard and get that degree. And I was simultaneously working for an arts nonprofit there. The Morris Bear Squire Foundation. We hosted exhibitions for young and up-and-coming artists in Santa Barbara. And then when I graduated, I moved to LA. I honestly wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I stumbled upon Bergamot Station Art Center, which is a phenomenal art center. It's this unique ecosystem of throughout the years, up to 30 gallerists in one location, centralized parking. And I applied to be an intern for Robert Berman of Robert Berman Gallery in Santa Monica Auctions. And I had no idea that I would become so obsessed with auctions and the primary market and secondary market. And it was a very unique experience to be in both worlds of gallerists and auctioneer at the same time. And every day was almost like Antiques Roadshow. People would just walk in or open to the public and say, what's it worth? And it was so much fun to hear like people just be so excited about my evaluations of things, So, and also just to study the market in general. It's very interesting and it fluctuates. But then it's thrilling when you do well for a client. And a little over a year ago, I found myself here with the lovely folks at LAMA, LA Modern Auctions, founded by Peter and Shannon Lawfrey. And now we're under the amazing umbrella of Richard Wright of Wright Auctions, and Toomey and Co., as well as Rago in New Jersey. So, yeah.
Thank you for that background, Alex. Again, we're really excited to have you. So let's hop into the August 2nd auction. This is the debut inaugural focused sale for LAMA. and you spearheaded that. So I'm very excited to hear you kind of open up about some thoughts that you had about the auction when you were planning early on, some pleasures, frustrations, challenges, but also some risks that you took and some payoffs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, should I start with the presentation?
Please, yes, it'd be great to get
Great.
some of the terms up and all of that.
Okay, great. Sharing my screen now.
There we go. Looks great.
Yeah, so this is just a map of our 4 brands located in 3 cities, LA, New Jersey, and Chicago. Surprisingly enough, none of our locations had ever really done a dedicated photography auction before. And I was very lucky to make a connection with a few dealers here in Los Angeles and tested the market with about 40 works in our March auction, and they did very well. Some borderline record-breaking prices. And so management asked, hey, do you want to do a photography auction? And I jumped at the opportunity because there aren't enough of them, especially here in LA.
Absolutely.
And so then I had a couple months to source work and start digging. And so, let me get my next. Just to give you guys a baseline though, before we kind of dig into auctions, I have a little glossary of terms. So we have, when I am assessing and evaluating artworks, you know, we always have an estimate, a low and a high estimate, which is a rough range of what we think an artwork would sell for. And then we also discuss a reserve with the consignor. The reserve is a private number in which we are allowed to sell the work for at auction. But in this case of this sale in particular, I consigned about 33% of the full sale at no reserve. This gave me the opportunity to guarantee a higher sell-through rate, but also to consign work at accessible price points. So we had a lot of works that were $1,000 and under, many in the $100 to $600 range. And that allowed me to have that easy price point for, or accessible price point for collectors, as well as exhibit works that maybe hadn't been at auction before. And yeah, and then, so then we have the hammer price, and that is the selling price in which a client raises their paddle and says, I'll bid, and they win at that price. And then we have the buyer's premium. Industry standard is 26%. It can be slightly higher. And that's the commission that the buyer pays in addition to the hammer price. And that's a commission essentially paid to the auction house that helps us keep the lights on, so to speak. And then price realized is the hammer price plus the buyer's premium. And that is the all-in price plus sales tax. That's the all-in price that the bidder paid for the piece.
Alex, before you move on though, quickly, I had a question for you. Can you talk a little bit about why it's not very typical to have such a high percentage of no reserve, and why this was kind of a big deal that you move forward?
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's kind of interesting that a lot of auction houses don't push for more no reserve and accessibility. I think part of the reason that there aren't a lot of sales with no reserve is because they're pushing for specifically the known images and the hot ticket items. And due to the competition for that property, you have to put reserve on an item like that because the consignor knows what they have. They've got that A+ piece. But in other instances I've seen with our mixed media sales, some clients understand that there's a thrill of starting a piece at no reserve. So even if it's a $10,000 to $20,000 painting, people, there's a feeding frenzy. There's that $1 eBay experience of, oh my God, I'm gonna get this treasure for $1. But then the last 30 seconds, wouldn't you know it, it's already at 10,000 because everyone else thought they were gonna get it for the $1.
Right.
So there's 2 points. So it's accessibility, which is very important to me because this is a new category for us. So we need to convert collectors of paintings and multiples that may not
Right.
understand photography or know photography, but we got to get them really interested and bite the hook. And then there's the other part of the eBay $1 excitement. And so one hopes that the two marry and then you get the best outcome. But it's an option. So I look into my crystal ball as much as I can. But as you'll see in the presentation, though, there's some pieces, there's no market data. So the crystal ball is blank and you go off of what you know personally from the market. So
Right. We'll get into that more in detail in part 2 for sure.
yeah. So the way that my process starts is a client emails us with artworks and says, hey, do you have a sale? What do you think this is worth? Okay. When I'm curating and selecting what pieces we sell at auction, first and foremost, any auctioneer would be lying if they said they weren't looking for the known collectible hot ticket items. Sharina Shah, I Am Its Secret, is the epitome of that. It's a beautiful, striking image. It will always sell if you have it within a reasonable range. Market standard, it's been selling for like around $6,000 to $12,000, mostly in the 6 to 10 in the past 5, 6, 7 years. And then after the buyer's premium, we realized 17,640. So we did very well on this image, but it was kind of a guaranteed win. So when you're doing these sales, you do need that foundation of the guaranteed wins. Another example, but so when you're receiving in these works, you then also ask about condition. Mm-hmm. So photography, I tell people condition. I need to see best images as possible. Barbara Caston, any artist that worked in these large format Polaroids, William Wegman. I always say, what's the real condition? Send me an iPhone photo. Let's see how shifted or faded the colors are. So Barbara Caston, these colors would have been a bit more punchy. The red would have been more vibrant. The contrast of the shadows would have been a bit stronger. However, her market is very stable. It's a name that people know and love and collect. And they always sell in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. And because of the medium, collectors understand are more understanding that the colors will be a little bit off because of that medium. So we can always kind of feel pretty good about the repeat estimate of $3,000 to $5,000. In this case, it sold really well. Right. And then I'm digging through piles and piles and piles of photographs sometimes, or prints or paintings in a storage shed looking for something amazing. And then you see something like this, you're looking through Hollywood photo after Hollywood photo of like Greta Garbo and all these images. And then you see this and you think, oh, it's a historic photo somewhere. Somebody liked to photograph a window washer. And then you flip it over and you see a stamp photographed by Ansel Adams. Right. Well, I don't think there were two Ansel Adams. And it had the date on it and everything. And so then when you're evaluating works, you see these atypical pieces by known people. What's it worth? Adams collectors like what they like. They like certain landscapes, and we have market data on press proofs where they're stamped saying for reproduction only, or just studio stamped. And usually they sell somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000 if they're a landscape. So I thought, well, $1,000 to $1,500 seems reasonable. Hopefully someone likes it. And people actually enjoyed this more than the snowy landscape that we had. And it sold for more, I think by $1,200 more or something like that. So that's kind of, it's interesting. And those are the cases where I like to be proven wrong, because then I learn something new for the next time.
Absolutely.
And then another example of where I was glad to be proven wrong. So Edmund Teskey, is, you guys likely know, being here in LA, is amazing photographer that was here in Los Angeles and did these very, very special solarized and duotone solarized photographs.
Love it.
And I saw this one, but what I first saw was this foxing everywhere. Everywhere on the mount was foxing. But the photo was perfect. I mean, given the age, it was perfect. The signature was very strong. But his market hasn't been strong. So I had to go, even though I knew this was an A+ image, I had to go with what the market has really told me recently. And we then set a record for Teskey. So his next highest hammer price, I think, was around $4,200, I think 3 years ago or something. So again, I was very happy to be wrong.
So based off of condition. So your own appraisal, your own condition report is what forced you to have to go with the basic market pricing because of that, right? Based off of the condition.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but the photo was fine, but some collectors really get turned off if the mount has issues, and they have to factor in, okay, what is a conservator going to charge me? I mean, it might be $800 to get it cleaned or what have you. So they factor that in to what they're bidding. So I knew this was a few $1,000 print at auction, even though his market has been very soft past few years. But it's a very rare, the flowers is a very rare, amazing image. So I'm very glad for Teskey that we did very well.
So far with this being a record sale, how has this sale individually with this piece affected Teskey's market?
We don't know, but I know in a week or next week, I'm probably going to have an inbox full of people with Teskey photographs. And I do, even if we have an amazing result, I still tell people, look, that was an A+ image. We can't promise it's going to happen again. We still have to stick with what the market has shown for the past, like some artists that are newer, emerging, we know they're going to be at White Cube in the summer, like they're growing. That's market data that we know that we can assume the market will get stronger. But for an estate like Edmund Teskey, you have to really factor in the past couple of years. So this one sale does not, to me, I would see that as, this is an A+ image. The image was great, but I don't know if that's going to drastically change the market.
Of course.
Another example is we had a Max Jovno photograph that was phenomenal that sold for $10,000, but that specific image always sells for $2,000 to $3,000. And then we had that same image again, and it sold for about $2,000. So
I like that major part. I really like.
Yeah, markets are very hard to predict. And then when I'm also looking for work, I'm thinking about themes, and so themes and genres and sectors of work that I personally want to promote. I want to give a voice to. Stephen Arnold was a queer photographer that passed away from AIDS around 1994. And I've always loved his work, but it's really rare to come across them and to get them for the secondary market. And we previously had offered this piece, I think at $2,000 to $3,000, and it didn't sell. One thing was there were condition issues with the mount, and so if it doesn't sell, well, wait a while and lower the numbers and see what happens. And in this case, I'm glad to say this found a good home, and it's a beautiful image by beautiful artists. So, and then also in that queer sector of artwork that I'm dying to get more and more of, we have a known artist, Nan Golden, but it's a smaller photograph, high edition of 325. But I thought, and this is from the Asian drag series that she documented. And so it's a drag artist putting on her makeup, getting ready for her show. And I just think it's nice to offer no names, but an accessible price. So even if you can't afford a gallery edition of 7 photograph, this is something that you can collect that still captures that eye of hers and the colors and the culture that she documents.
It also kind of plays back into what we were saying about how composition heavily impacts the sale. So the more marginalized representation, we know Nan Golden, but this is more so a series that may not have been more prominent. So the starting point in the market because of the composition or the content in the piece. And you're trying to kind of rebuild that by
I mean, there are very few auction houses that really put a spotlight on this genre. Swan does an amazing sale every year, but there should be 20 sales a year, and because the work is out there, it's just a matter of finding it and having it at the same time as well. So and then from this genre, this is a body of work that was produced by a couple that are opposite gender identifying artists and filmmakers and documentarians. And they Zachary Drucker and Reese, they documented themselves in the process of transitioning, which is such an intimate thing to share with the world. And the images really are just beautiful, and they really reflect the quietness and introspection and maybe this in the struggle of this whole process. And they're artists that showed this work with Luis DeJesus that we know here in LA, and they've won many awards. But I think Zachary had one photograph that came of an auction at an obscure auction house, but aside from that, no one else has sold their work at auction. And I saw these kind of came in at the last minute with a collection, and I was like, this is perfect. I need this for this section of the sale. And so as an auctioneer and curating a sale, you have this unique platform to be the voice and show and uplift this work. And so I was very proud to see this work, and the consignor was happy to share it with us. And she told me the whole story, and it was like, yeah, it was amazing. So she wanted someone else to love them as much as she had loved them. So
right.
Yeah. And then kind of bouncing back to, underrepresented artists, but then also atypical imagery. Carrie Mae Weems, as we know, we just had that wonderful walkthrough of the Dewey Bay exhibition, which was concurrent with the Getty and Carrie Mae Weems show, which was like, oh, it was amazing. And how they did the walls, the black walls with those photographs. It was
so much care. Yeah.
So much care. And I wish I could do that to the whole gallery, but alas, we have auctions twice a month, and that would drive the staff crazy. But but then when I saw this, I was like, well, I want it. I know, I don't care. It could be of a rock or a shoe. It's Carrie Mae Weems, and it's signed, it's hers, and it's like, it's early in, not super early, but it's an interesting series that people may not recognize by her. And in researching, I only saw market data for a smaller platinum print edition that she did of this image, which is really beautiful printing given the subject matter. But we had it. I just basically tried to match what something similar had sold for, $2,000 to $3,000, in hopes that the collector base would see, you know, it's a unique, beautiful image by this great photographer, and it sold really well. So that
It was exciting being with you during this. You know, I was, for those of you, on August 2nd, I was at LAMA with Alex for the live auction and giving the live insights with her. And it was a thrill to see this realized price actually begin to appreciate live and on site. So
yeah.
to what you're saying.
Yeah, I imagine it's what like people that watch sports feel like. They're like, oh, it's they scored a goal or something. I don't know. I don't do sports, but I imagine that's the thrill of it. Uh,
That is,
so yeah, and then I think going back to the no reserve strategy, it helps to have. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a business. I'm lucky enough to have managers that really support unique vision and having like that whole section dedicated to all the queer photography that I was given and I could take. But then, sprinkling in atypical work. And it helps to then give us a good result, I guess.
no, absolutely.
So yeah, it feels good when it pays off, to take risks, but then you're uplifting work that another auction house would probably have passed on.
Absolutely. So these are the results of the auction, right? The final numbers here. Can you talk a little bit about like, this sale relatively to the overall average percentage for LAMA? Like you gave me a good insight previously to how this might have paired to that and what you were expecting, but basically what it meant to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So LAMA, right, Rago to me. Luckily and unfortunately for me, as trying to launch a new category, they on average sell usually at minimum 90-95% of the overall sale, a sell-through rate. And then by value, it's near 100% a lot of the times. So it was very hard on myself thinking I have to do an A+ job my first go for our company. And in what is a very difficult market, honestly. Across the board in other auction houses, it's very common to have 70-75% sell-through rate. And I would say it's because it's a combination of it's a very tricky market to price and to follow, but then also the market base, it doesn't feel as large and encompassing as mixed media. And so, and then also being prints, sometimes there isn't the demand urgency. If you have a painting and it's a one-off, buy now or you'll never see it again. So there's all these factors that kind of go into your head. And so having a fair amount of no reserve helps you gain a better sell-through rate, but simultaneously convert those painting buyers in. And I loved having people come in to see, because we had our mixed media sale the day before, which this actually outperformed, which I was very excited by. The photography is important. And I think people get somewhat confused and wrapped up in what is this? And it's like Peter said in the talk that you had, it brings you joy. There's nothing to think about. If you love this image, if you connect and you get entranced by her vision, that's all you really need to know. And then if you're not sure of what the medium, what type of photography, how did they do it? That's what I'm there for. I'm there to help you and to make it approachable and easy. But photography is just beautiful. You can really, and some are disturbing. I mean, we had a very tough Joel Peter Witkin photograph, a woman in the process of castrating a man, but it was again though a beautiful printing and the staging and the drama,
the lighting,
Oh, it was amazing. And clearly the consignor loved it by that ornate frame.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
so there's and that's also what I try to do for the sale. I try to cover as many genres as possible and have something for everyone at every price point.
Right.
Yeah. So
So Alex, we can hop into part two because we're kind of naturally doing that. If you want to stop sharing screen, or we can leave this up, but we can hop to part two, which is more so going to jump into the ideas, your ideas about building the sale, this sale in specific, but in general with your role, in the arts, and also diversifying representation through sales and collectorship. So maybe we can hop into that a little bit. I think a good starting point. I mean, I kind of want to pause and ask the audience, please make sure to add questions and comments if you have any. We will hold space for them. We'll do it live. But maybe one starting point that we can hop into is, you kind of touched on this, but again, I want to hear more of your ideas into this point rather than necessarily the logistics of it. Preparing and valuing the material, from the perspective of an auction house, but also from the seller and the collector's point.
yeah. So from a seller's point, yeah, there's the base of, okay, there's easy known works that always sell, like the Shrina shots, or in Prince and Multiples, Ed Ruscha prints, Ellsworth Kelly, these known names. There's not really much thought personally that I feel like, aside from analyzing the condition of the piece, and authentication, and making sure the provenance and the signatures and everything lines up. But what I think is more interesting, and what my managers kind of allowed me to be a part of, is when we have inquiries of up and coming and new artists. So someone that's showing at these mid-career galleries here in LA. I mean, if someone's showing with Gagosian, but they've never been in an auction, it's sort of an easy bet that it will be collectible because they are an active artist, top tier gallery. And I also look for, is this work typical of what they're doing now? So if it's a new artist that has never been sold, but it's a work from 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and they hadn't hit their stride yet, often you'll see collectors of these new artists want what they're doing now or what they're known for now. And so, yeah, but I find it really interesting trying to price and gauge the market on artists that have never been sold at auction, like Zachary and Reese from the PowerPoint. You kind of have to just say, okay, well, it retails for this. At what discount level would someone bid? And would it go beyond the retail because it's a limited edition that's no longer available?
Right. Well, pairing two works or a series from an artist in the same auction. So I love one thing that really struck me, which is why I woke up in the night and was like, we must do something. We have to have some type of online conversation, but it's like the diversity and the expanse of the breadth of works that you have represented in this sale. It's like, talk about how you kind of pair. Like, do you ever pair? Well, you do, because I've seen it,
Yeah.
but what is that process when you're pairing a later series from an artist or an unknown series with something that's more iconic in the same sale? There has to be some type of dichotomy and exchange, some considerations for those value points when they're all in the same conversation.
Yeah. So honestly, I put my salesman hat on and think, like the Gregory Crewdson's in the sale, the black and white tableaus that he's known for, that people buy, that sold for $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 at our sale. Somebody had an earlier work that isn't quite as collected. So I usually want to take the atypical, not early, not collectible works and let those piggyback on the A+ sought after. So in theory, if someone's bidding on these Crewdsons that are collectible, and let's say they lose out on the bid, well, they have this other piece, and maybe they'll get excited by that and kind of open their minds to not just what everyone else is collecting, but a work that is by Crewdson, but from earlier body of work. So it's actually helpful if you have what is collected and what may be atypical, and let them play off each other.
Right. And when you're talking to a collector or a dealer and you're having the conversations, tell us a little bit about what that exchange is like. I know kind of part 3 is more so in the stewardship part, but I'd like to hear about when you're having to kind of convince someone like, no, let me take that and that. Or when they're like, no, take that, but you're like, but I want this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, building those relationships is so instrumental. Whether it's a dealer or a collector or someone whose mother passed away and they just have stuff, they don't know what it is. I
Right.
treat everyone the same in the sense that I don't believe in playing games. I believe in full transparency and just being honest and direct and building this foundation of transparency. I think just because that's just how I am in general.
Right.
But maybe to a fault. But no, I think it doesn't do anyone any service to kind of blow smoke and say, oh, this is the best one. It's going to sell. Even let's say it sells for 3,000 to 5,000. Oh, for you, I'll put an estimate of 5 to 7. No, you're setting up for expectations if you actually have the market data that is a predictor of the future. And I think it's best to be conservative, especially with the photography market. I like to be a little more conservative with this body of work, as well as the new because we don't have that market data, and just be honest about what the expectations can be. And yeah, although I have to say dealers naturally are going to be a bit more tough, but some collectors are very, very tough. And sometimes it comes from a really great place though, because they've had this piece hanging on their wall for years and it's become a part of the family. Maybe the daughter thinks it's the best one and they love it, but the parent is wanting to sell it and switch things up. So there's a stewardship there of client relations, of taking care. So whether you're a big time dealer or you're just a mom with one piece that you got from the artist in art school, I'm going to treat you just the same. Yeah.
Right. And that's one of I like that you referenced stewardship there, because that's one of my favorite things about collecting, but also working with collectors is they are also in a role positionality that they are stewarding a lot, oftentimes the practice or the breadth of a career or of an artist. So they take such care in where it goes, how it'll be informed, how it's represented.
Yeah.
Alex, we actually have 2 questions in the chat. I'll just run my mouth and but I've been paused to check out the chat. So I'm going to post 2 of them to you. The first one is from Richard. Oh, hi, Richard. He said, thank you, Alex. You showed in part 1 with solarization work, dye transfers and such. Would you share your thoughts on alternative photography? Those that are or can be one-of-one originals, or some can even be considered as mixed media. Is that a good genre for auction?
Oh, I was literally speaking with, I'm not going to name drop names, but happened upon, she called me and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. But she works with she has these large format Polaroids. I mean, and I'm talking like she had some unique photographs that were like 90 inches tall. And I was saying how I know that's a whole other conversation, but
exciting.
I was geeking out for sure. But it was interesting. So I was speaking to my manager about this and slowly trying to incept the idea of photography auctions last year when I started. But
Right.
I want more unique photography that's pushing the boundaries, like the walkthrough we went at Douglas Marshall Gallery, like that work. I wanted it all. I wanted it all.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's just so interesting that of the over 100 plus years of the history of photography, which is why I wanted to show the whole range, or as early and as new as I was offered, to show how beautiful but diverse photography can be. But yeah, unique in boundary pushing photography, I think is very exciting. And frankly, when I went to Freeze here in LA, I was so happily proven right that they are all pushing unique one-of-one photography, or like one of two. And I think it's because it's again converting those painting collectors to photography collectors, because maybe they don't want to spend $500,000 on a painting, but they can afford a $50,000 unique Sugimoto, or or a unique Polaroid. So anyway, that's a very good question. And yeah, dye transfers too. I just love the color. Yeah, there's some mediums, it's just you can only get that punchy color. And then also, like, yeah, Polaroids are so exciting because you don't know what you're going to get. So
just the object itself, the instantaneousness of the object, preserving the object, its exchangeability, it's a little addicting. That was a great question, Richard, and that was a really thorough answer, Alex. I'm going to hop to Philip's question. Philip Loken. Does Alex, do you offer consulting to emerging artists on pricing or other general aspects of the fine art industry?
That's a very good question. I actually do get funneled all of the artist inquiries that we get through our brands. And most auction houses just send the generic, no, thank you, or not at all. But I actually really do look into the artist's work to see if there could be a partnership. And a couple of times there were some people that I really enjoyed their work. But because of their gallerist, the gallerist said, which I understand. The gallerist, the gallerist, I mean, I used to do that. I understand time and effort, and I'm sorry, but money that they spend to take these artists from the dark room to the gallery, to the museum, to the collector. And so I respect gallerists so much for what they do. So, and it's tricky because when I do see an emerging or up and coming artist that maybe somebody bought a photograph by, the first thing, whether it's from the photographer themselves or a collector of this new piece or something from the past 3-4 years, let's say, right. I look into the artist's exhibition history. So something that I, as a dealer on the secondary market, I'm looking for a solid history or an interesting history. Who have you shown with? What does your body of work look like, and how has that progressed? Has it stayed the same, or has it stayed the same because, Stella found her groove? Because that's the thing is, I see some artists that get kind of stagnant, or they stop showing for 3 years or 4 years. And for me, it's hard for me because auctions are betting at the end of the day. You are betting on this time at this place under demand urgency, someone will buy this at this price. So with new up and coming artists, I have to really believe that this exhibition history with these at least mid-level or higher galleries, and the shows show that the work has sold, I then can gamble that our collectors will be into it. So it's a lot of reading and researching, a lot more than I'd say for these known artists, that have records. So, but I take that care. So if anybody did want to reach out to me by email, I'd be happy to give my 2 cents, whatever that's worth.
Right.
Yeah, I saw that Douglas Marshall offers consultations. I was going to say, I've noticed on his Instagram, and I think that's an amazing thing that he does.
Yes.
Has an insane eye, very good.
Right.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, that's the catch-22 of offering at auction. You first need to have shown with a gallerist, in my opinion. You need that level of established market. So if they've shown with someone like Douglas Marshall or Peter has launched their career, then the auctioneers get interested.
It's very interesting. That kind of plays into this concept that I'm thinking about is, the public and the privatized, right? Quite often sales are more privatized, or the back end of it, which is why we're having the conversation, demystifying it a little bit.
Yeah.
So talk about a little bit working in that space, Alex. I know you just engaged it, but very specifically the private and the public. I like that it was almost like you need the public exposition to then be taken to the next level of auction. But are there any exceptions, or what are your thoughts around that whole kind of concept?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because some artists, it's very easy to find what things sell for. You have artsy and websites that list the price, and then there's auction records that are public. But then there's dealers that really keep everything close to their chest. They don't allow their artists to sell at auction. But it's interesting when you go to a client's home and you get a peek into their universe and their personality. And I mean, you can really tell a lot about a collector based on their collection, whether they're very conservative and they collect known, like they will get a profit off of what they purchased, or you might see a body of like all of these photographs by different people from different times in different places. And then you understand immediately that maybe they're not a world traveler, but maybe they wish they were. And so when they come home, they get to pretend that they are and escape into this photograph that they have. And so it's a really special relationship then you have to foster.
Yes.
And I never take the position that, okay, I'm selling this whole collection and I'm never going to talk to them again. It's a lot more than that. And it's the same with gallerists too. I mean, you really have to assume this is an ongoing relationship. So every connection that I make, like I said, I treat everyone the same. So, but it is very exciting when you see something on the wall and then they don't know it's like, oh, somebody had like this phenomenal Sugimoto they bought for like $500 at like a dinner party like 40 years ago. And now it's like a $30,000 photo. And they're like, wait. And so then that's the flip side. If you know those prices off the top of your head, they'll give it to you right away and say, okay, you know what that's worth. I consign it? And I say, oh, yeah, I would be, I'd be happy too. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about kind of previously, like a few days ago, so we've had many of these conversations the past like week or so.
Yeah.
But in my mind, just in my background as a gallerist, but also now, and even talking with you, the collector, this is often can be a source of creative expression and a form of their own curatorial based off of what they collect. There's collections that are based off of themes and time, era, subject matter, material. So can you talk a little bit? It's almost like there's always a collaboration. And we're talking about building and stewarding relationships. So talk a little bit about the dealers or the collectors that you work with recurringly, but also that kind of collaborate with you to say, you know what, this would really inform the market, but this would really inform the overall view plane of what we're trying to do here, right? That collaboration.
Yeah. So like regarding dealers, I mean, some dealers saw our results for certain artists like Max Jobno, and they said, well, hey, do you want to try this one out? We had such great success last time. And because you have that Rolodex now of those buyers and the proven track record for that work. And then sometimes they'll unlock the gate, so to speak. And then but then you find yourself sifting through 500 photographs in like 3 hours and you're going cross. But then you come across that Ansel Adams top of the mark, and then you come across these beautiful nude men partying in Palm Springs, and they're the Tom Bianchis. I loved that work, and they had condition issues. One wasn't signed, and I said, look, this makes a beautiful triptych. Someone in Palm Springs needs to buy it. I'll put them together. So, because even though one was in excellent shape, the other two were iffy shape, but they're family, and instead of just passing on the other two and taking the golden one, make them as a grouping and make it kind of a fun mini collection. And then maybe they want to buy more, you know?
Alex, that's one of my favorite things about kind
Yeah.
of being in spaces with collectors and being a part of that conversation is like they are experts in and of it themselves, based off of
yeah.
what they're really curating and aesthetically laying out and stewarding. So thanks for
Yeah.
engaging with me. It's
Yeah.
really exciting for me too.
Oh, we love collectors, and individual collector sales. Those make the best sales because those collectors took the time and care to develop this collection. And so one thing we love to do is write a whole narrative about this person and biography, and have, we've even done photographs of their home or them in situ with the work. So it gives you that intimate reflection of this. It's not just a collection, it's a person who built this and curated this collection, sometimes over 30, 40, 50 years. So it's very
Quite often
special.
with artists too, right? Working with the artists over time.
Yeah, and people
really
that
been
have those collections often supported these artists at the beginning. I mean, it's very common to have that story, which is great to share.
So we have some questions in the chat. You and I, you know, we'll
Yeah.
keep going. And then we're almost running out of time, but you know, we can continue a little bit. If there's any other questions, people. But so Jennifer DiCarlo, hi Jennifer. Big fan of Jennifer, friend of the organization. She said, what is the ratio of return clients to new, especially cross media? For example, unique photo works from clients interested in painting.
That is my homework now that we have done this sale. But we do get a rough quickie overview of the sale. And we had like the top 5 buyers were all net new clients to our brand, which was very exciting. So they had never bid with us at all. But converted buyers, I don't know that yet, but I love studying metrics and geeking out on that and going crazy. But then again, you can analyze all of the data, and at the end of the day, the next sale is going to be totally different. No, and I think that's the fun about it, is no two sales are the same. And I mean, who knows, maybe my next sale will be like 50% queer photography. I would love that, you know, but it's whatever collectors send to me and what themes I can build out of that. So
Alex, you said it first. You said a whole collection dedicated to queer photography. It is out there. It is possible, and you said it first.
Yeah, anybody collected from Wessel O'Connor in the 80s and 90s, they were phenomenal dealers, and they're I love everything that they did. But yeah, anyway.
That was a great question, Jennifer. She said, I was interested in your remarks on freeze. A lot of your artists are interested in creating unique works. Patrons don't believe me. They will only make one. Will only make one.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, no, it's true. People get confused because photography, they think, well, you can just make another one, right? But if it's a Polaroid, you can't. You can do the same setting, but like, what if the person blinks? Like William Wegman, what if the dog blinks? What if he sneezes? Then it's a totally different photo.
Absolutely. We have a few more questions from Richard Chow. Thank you, Richard, for being so engaging. The first question would be, would the size of photographs make a difference? Not sure if that is a thing from a collector. Hope it would be nice. Hope it would be the nice content and not the dimensions of the piece. Any advice?
Yeah, you know, I'm going to quote Peter Fetterman in his talk, because I loved what he said. If it doesn't matter, like if a small photo is beautiful, it doesn't matter what size, it will always be engaging. But if the photo is not a very good composed or intimate or interesting image, that you'll see a lot of Hollywood photography is just blown up to be big. And oftentimes they're blown out. So the printing isn't even very good, because the camera wasn't very good. It wasn't like a large format camera. So you can't just blow it up to blow it up. But when I think about auctions, let's say that it is established artist or it is a good A+ image, sometimes the size actually hinders the sale. You've got to think, how many people in LA have a 10-foot wall that's just free up for a big old photo?
It's the biggest challenge. architecture.
Yeah, so whether it's mixed media, prints, sculpture, photography, at auction, size usually is a hindrance. So sometimes I will be even more conservative and price something less. So if there's a photograph that's, I mean, huge, like 5 by 8 feet, I'm going, depending on the artist, depending on the market data, but in general, there's going to be less demand because there's less people with that space versus 24 by 36 or what have you, like a smaller photo. And sometimes like an 8 by 10, people, I can never tell someone you don't have space for an 8 by 10.
Right.
You can find a place.
Yeah, 100%. There's
Yeah.
also the collectors that prefer to have, more pieces available, readily available, rather than a larger real estate that's taken by one. They want to have a more extensive collection of smaller pieces, almost encyclopedic, right?
Yeah.
Another question from Richard. How would auction houses source emerging photographers? How would an emerging photographer, a photograph, get on the radar?
Yeah, I mean, so to go back to what I said before, I mean, the best thing you can do is your primary market, build up your exhibition history. You've got to build that market first and have a body of work as well as a body of exhibitions that have proof of sale in this primary market. That will then help the dealers or auctioneers have faith that we can risk being the first to offer an auction. So yeah, I would just say, start with whichever galleries are willing to show you, and then you kind of step by step gradually grow. And then when you're at the mid-level galleries, it then helps give us a bit of confidence to kind of take the leap of faith with you. But I also, on the other side of the coin, I always say, be careful, because that record will be public information forever. So if your primary market, you sell your photographs for $7,500 a piece, at auction, I probably have to estimate 2,000 to 3,000, because we can't place it too close to retail, because it just doesn't make sense. And then if it doesn't sell at 2,000 to 3,000, then the next time you try to sell your work, the next auction house is going to say, well, we got to try 1 to 2 or no reserve.
Right.
So yeah, so there's a lot of work and thought.
That was a really great question, Richard. Thank you for answering that, as you did, Alex. The last thing I kind of want to pose, because we're at 4 o'clock, and those who can stay with us for a second, please do. But this is something that I felt really interested in, which is pretty just basic, but the actual platform of the online auction, or having access to the auction via the online platform. Historically, you're in house, you're in space, you're taking up the room, you've got the paddle, you're present. So can you talk about the evolution of that, how it's impacted the market, how it's generated more accessibility, but also challenges, and also upcoming things that you might be working towards the online platform?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure like dealers like Peter and Robert Berman, they know back in the day when there was Butterfields and Butterfields, before there were Bonhams and Butterfields, and then Bonhams, but these rooms were just a lot of dealers buying at auction and then reselling through their galleries, because these auctions weren't as publicly known early on to the public, unless you were just this cult collector and you knew the sale was going to be on Tuesday at 12 o'clock.
Right.
But with the advent of technology and online bidding, it's really created a free market. We have more end users of the product, i.e. majority of the people buying the work from us are collectors, or even artists themselves. There's some established artists that buy their work back because they haven't been able to source this early work, or they want to protect their market. But then we also have dealers that buy from us as well. Our our founders, like he is really, or our owner of our umbrella, Richard Wright, is very into technology and investing in our company to be able to grow in that regard. Because I mean, in this day and age, technology is so important. One thing that we do that helps broaden our network is we list our auctions. Majority of them are not only on our website, but we also have, we list ourselves in Live Auctioneers and Valuable and Artsy as well. So we connect to this whole network of people that are just searching for this one image or this one artist. And then virtually you have hundreds and hundreds of people, if not 1,000 people, watching and bidding on this sale. And so then you really get a good sense of, well, what will the people deem today that this is worth on the secondary market, versus dealers that are like looking at each other in person saying, are you really going to bid against me? Just give me the piece.
Right. It's just like,
so now, yeah, everyone's behind the screen. And yes, we do live auctions and people can bid and wave their paddle or phone bid. But a lot of people prefer to bid online, I think, because of that anonymity and that privacy. So they can collect things and no one knows it was them. So it's really interesting.
Alex, we've come up on our time. It was wonderful. Maybe we'll do another part conversation.
Yeah.
I look forward to continuing the conversation with you. We have you as a member, so I'm happy that you're joining us. Members, thank you so much for staying a little longer with us. Attendees, thank you for being here. Alex, do you have any closing thoughts or remarks for us before I hop into telling you about our upcoming events, members?
Yeah, no, it was great to be here, and I really look forward to seeing you guys at the next talks. And don't be shy. Feel free to say hi. And if you have questions, I love to be approachable and to like demystify this whole process of auctions. And especially if you're an artist, I'm happy to give you my spiel and explain how it all works. So yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Again, we love to engage collectorship, demystifying sales, privatized versus public. So we love to engage the conversation. Thank you so much for being here for that. Members, we will see you next week at LACMA for an exhibition walkthrough of Women Defining Women. Alex, we'll probably see you there too. And until next time, everyone, thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of your Friday. We'll talk soon. Bye, Alex. Thank you.